Hello, today I'm gonna present you the advanced options of the ShakaBot. The ShakaBot will allow you to send sound, GIF, videos, and keyboard shortcuts with your Twitch talent points. For those who have not seen the first video's tutorial, I put it in description. It will help you install the ShakaBot and set up your first rewards. These actions triggered by the ShakaBot will be captured in a green screen that you can then capture on OBS. And today I'm gonna show you all the options of the ShakaBot and show you some examples of what you can do with it to go further. You have three ways to trigger actions in the ShakaBot. First, with the channel points. Once you have created your reward on Twitch, for instance here, my reward, you give it the same name on the ShakaBot and it will be active. For now, I have set up a GIF as an example. I will show you how to do it later. You can also trigger it with chat commands. For instance, if I type GG, and now in the chat, we can see that it triggered the action. But you can also choose the trigger to be a sentence containing GG. So for instance, if someone say congrats GG, the GIF still appears. You can choose if you want to reserve this for VIP, subscribers, and or moderators. You can also add a cooldown so that the command is taken into account every X seconds that you choose. And finally, the last way to trigger the ShakaBot is through shortcut action. So for instance, if I choose Ctrl-Alt-P, now if I type Ctrl-L-P, the GIF appears. You can choose to play it in priority, so if there is a queue, it will be read first. And you can also choose to ignore the cooldown. So if you have other rewards that have a cooldown, it will be read instantly. Now we'll move to the different actions that you can trigger with the ShakaBot. First, we have the chat response that allows the ShakaBot to send messages in the chat. You can add several possible responses. For instance, hello and hi. And when you trigger the reward, it will choose one of them randomly. You can also add variables that are detailed below. For instance, if we say hello user, it will send back the name of the user that triggered the reward. So now if we test it, we have hello Shakawa. You can also add a random number between a minimum and a maximum and a counter that you can modify here. Next we have the sounds. So first you will have to select a file or a folder. If you select the folder, it will read a random file in the folder and the subfolders. But for this example, I'm gonna choose a file. And now, if we test it, we can hear the sound. Now I'm gonna show you the different options. You can adjust the volume. If you've selected a folder, you can force the random to pick a different sound each time. Otherwise, the random can give you twice the same file. Or you can choose to read the files in the order of the folder. You can add a delay before the start, which can allow you to synchronize it with some pictures. You also can choose to loop the sound several times or an infinite time. And if you've selected a folder, you can have a new sound at each loop. And finally, you can add a delay between those loops. Now I'm gonna show you the pictures and animation. For this example, I'm gonna delete the sound, but keep in mind that you can combine all the actions together. As for the sound, you first need to pick a file or a folder. And this time I'm gonna select the folder. And now for the options, first you have the alignment, on which you can set where you want your GIF to appear on the screen, or choose a random location. You can also choose to randomize the size. Now if we test it with the play button, it will bring the Shaka screen on the front, and you can see that the location and the size are random. For the size, you can also ask the ShakaBot to make the GIF fit to the screen if it's smaller than the Shaka screen, and or if it's bigger than the Shaka screen. This allows you, if you have several GIFs that will be shown on the same Shaka screen, to adapt all to the same size without to have to resize them one by one. Then, as for the sounds, if you have selected a folder, you can force the random to pick a different picture each time, or to read them in order. You can add a delay before the start of the picture, and choose how long it will be shown, or even an infinite duration. I will show you an interest of the infinite duration later in this video. And finally, you have the multi-pictures overlap, which allows you to add several images on top of each other with transparency. Note that they will all be the same size of the main image. Then we have the videos. I'm not gonna explain the option because they are the same as the sound and the pictures together. The only important point to raise is that for the capture of your Shaka screen for videos, you need to choose the capture method Windows 10 or Windows Graphic Captures. Otherwise, the video will work in the ShakaBot, but you won't see it in OBS. And finally, we have the keyboard shortcuts. It's a new feature which is still in beta, so I recommend especially for these actions to test it before using it in live. I've tried to make it as customizable as possible, so I'll show you an example that shows the potential of this feature. For this example, I'm using Snap Camera, and I've already added 3 shortcuts to 3 filters, Alt-M, Alt-N, and Alt-L. Now I add the capture in OBS, and my goal will be that people can launch a random filter, show it on OBS for a while, then hide it on OBS and remove the filter. For that, I added keyboard shortcuts in OBS to show and hide my SnapCam source. Now let's do it with the ShakaBot. First, we add a new action. We want to select a random shortcut between Alt-L, Alt-M, and Alt-N. So now my first action will select one random shortcut from this list. Then we want to display SnapCam, so we add a new shortcut, which was Alt-Num8. Then we want to add a 5 seconds delay, for instance. After that, we want the shortcut to hide SnapCam, Alt-Num7. And finally, we want to repeat the shortcut that was picked on action 1. For that, we don't select a random shortcut, we repeat the action's result of the action 1. And now, if we test it, we can see that everything is working. This feature is still in beta and some of the shortcuts are not always taken into account by the application. For instance, if OBS is in foreground, it will not take the shortcuts. So that's why I left beta written, because I'm trying to find a better solution. I will let you know when it's available, but in the meantime you can already do a lot of stuff. Now I'm going to tell you more about the green screens, the Shaka screens, to better understand how they work. Basically, a Shaka screen will work like a queue, so all the rewards you put on a Shaka screen will be put in a row when they are claimed. You can add a cooldown to each reward, which will allow you to space out the queue. And you have other ways to control how fast your viewers can send new rewards, like incrementing the cost, or going in the cooldown on limit tabs. There you can add a redemption cooldown time, a limit redemption per stream, and a limit redemption per user per stream. You can also create multiple Shaka screens, for example, to have different queues. I will show you an example. I'm adding a Shaka screen that I call background, and I also create a new reward that I will call change background. I go in the tab picture and animations, and I add a folder in which I have 3 backgrounds. Then in the options, I make it fit to the Shaka screen, force the random to pick a different picture each time, and an infinite duration. Then I set it to be shown on the Shaka screen background, so if we read it now, we can see it's working and add it to OBS. I've already created it on Twitch, and now if we test it, the background changes. And if someone claims the other reward, it won't stop the background since they are on 2 different Shaka screens. Another thing to know is that if you're using a Shaka screen only for the sounds, you can hide it. However, for your images to be captured on OBS, your Shaka screens must be visible and not minimized. Otherwise, Windows won't calculate the images. But it can still be behind the other applications. I will give you one last tip, which is more about OBS this time. Let's say you want to have the Shaka screen background behind your camera at all time like this, for instance. Rather than having to duplicate your camera and your background on each scene, I suggest that you create a new scene on which you can add your camera and the background. And now on your scene, instead of having to manage the camera and the background, you can add the scene and move everything at the same time. So these are just a few examples of what you can do with the ShakaBot, but I hope this will give you some ideas. I'm still discovering what streamers are doing with it, and that's why I'm still updating it. Now I will always make a video to explain the updates. Thanks a lot for following this tutorial. Feel free to share it, like it, and tell other streamers about it. Word of mouth is really important to me. Feel free to join the Discord and assign yourself the role ShakaBot if you want to talk about it and propose your ideas. You can also check out Vote on Proposition to see some of the update ideas and vote for the one you like the most. Have fun and see you soon.